All right, welcome to episode 1 of season 2 of the Culinary Saijiki podcast. And if you'd been paying attention at all, or you might have just forgotten that I said this was going to launch back in March. And now it is almost the end of June, and I'm just now launching this. So where have I been? What's been going on? Why did I take 3 months to actually kick off season 2? 3 months beyond what I said I was going to. First, to be perfectly honest, for the last 8 months, I was in the second job I've had since moving to St. Louis. So I moved here for a job last June 2022. That only lasted 3 or 4 months. It was just not a good situation, not a good fit. Not getting paid enough to pay my mortgage, that was kind of a problem. So I I left higher ed briefly and went in and worked at an engineering company as a technical writer, and that was it paid more. The commute was marginally better, but it was a really bad situation. So I spent really the first 4 months of the year severely depressed, and not really able to give much attention to any of my creative projects. That's really what it was. But fortunately, I am out of that job. I am back in higher ed with a working from home twice a week, 20-minute commute. I'm not teaching, but I'm in the IT department, and I'm actually having a lot of fun. So I am much happier, and I've been there for just about a month now, and I'm finally feeling my creative spirit kicking back in, which is fantastic. And mental health stuff aside, I was also finishing my level 3 Pilates certification. And I've taken on a lot more responsibilities as a haiku citizen. I am serving as the newsletter editor for Haiku Society of America, in addition to being the Midwest Regional Coordinator. In hindsight, 2 positions is a lot of work. And, as is on brand for me, when I've, taken on a lot, it's very easy for me to take on more. So I'm also the editor for the members anthology this year for HSA, which, again, huge undertaking. I'm having tremendous fun doing it. I don't think they let you edit it multiple years in a row consecutively, but I kind of wish they did, because I'm just having such a great time putting it all together. So that's a little bit of where I've been and why this did not launch in March as originally planned. So it goes. As I have mentioned on the blog, season 2, and I think I actually mentioned this at the end of the podcast season, even last year, season 2 is focused on classical haiku. Which I am finding super fun to just dive through all the ways in which food is used from some of these classical masters. But since I announced that, I have also added a cookbook to my repertoire as a text of study, which I think is fitting. And the book is called 6 Seasons, A New Way with Vegetables. And I will post more of like an overview of that over on the blog, I think next week. 6 Seasons, A New Way with Vegetables by Joshua McFadden. I found this in a bookstore, I think like 2 weeks after I wrapped up season 1. It is a beautiful, rather expensive, not gonna lie, cookbook, but I just had to have it. And I justified it as, this is something that will, I think, really help with my haiku journey. You can probably hear me rustling these the paper is beautiful. I'm sort of ruffling through the pages right now. It is just the way that Joshua writes is lovely, And he does divide the year into 6 seasons. Fall, winter, spring, and then summer is subdivided 3 ways: early, midsummer, and late summer. And he talks about at the introduction to early summer. That section opens, "The seasons don't ever divide themselves neatly," and that is something that you've heard me wrestle with over and over on this podcast and this blog. It's something I am still wrestling with, especially in a new way, because I started this project when I lived in Texas, and now I live in a place with real seasons again. And I could probably just write a long post about what it has been like adjusting to that. I grew up with seasons, but then I lived 15 years without them. So I have cooked right now from since the seasons don't divide it always neatly, I have cooked from the spring section, and I have cooked from early summer and from midsummer. Are we quite in midsummer? Well, according to the haiku calendar, we are. We're edging into it, and this has just been great. So it's been great as it informs my study of the seasons and what they mean in haiku. It's also been great because I live in the Soulard neighborhood, which has a farmer's market that has been in operation since the 1700s. I've been going there so much more now that it's been in spring and summer. And this book has been a very interesting guide in learning how to explore and pay attention to what's there. If you want, my favorite recipes so far have the salads. The salads are just out of this. Joshua McFadden puts more thought into salads than I have possibly put into any meal I've ever cooked in my entire life. These are some of the best salads I've had. My favorites so far and it's not all salads, and it's not all vegetarian. It seems like it might be, but this is not a vegetarian cookbook. But my favorites so far have been the butter lettuce with new potatoes, eggs, and pancetta vinaigrette. And then actually today for lunch, I made the potato and roasted cauliflower salad with olives, feta, and arugula. Amazing. This book is a great guide, and I'm just going to put it out there after HNA. I'm going to see if I can get Joshua to come on the podcast. I think that would be super fun. I know he's not a poet, but he has this book. He has another book about grains that I've also bought that I have not dove into yet, so I'm not going to speak on that right now, but I know I will in a future episode and or blog post. But either way, his approach to the seasons and food is amazing. So he can bring the food, I can bring the haiku. I think we'd have a great discussion. No promises. I'm going to just see what I can do. Anyway, so with that, what is coming up in the future? So first, yes, I'm making episodes again, and I have totally redone. I obviously had to redo my whole editorial calendar, as you might have guessed. But there will be a community open mic for the podcast that will go live on August 30th. Again, more details about that after HNA, Haiku North America. And November 29th, there will be a community blog post. So there will be 2 community opportunities this season. I might add a couple more in if I get a lot of requests to do so, because they are pretty fun. So if you do want to see more of those, please do let me know. Other than that, yes, Haiku North America. I will be recording a special episode of this podcast as my presentation at HNA. I'm so excited to be at HNA. This is my first year going. I'm so excited to I'm excited to see my Austin friends that are going to be there. I'm so excited to see them again. And so many of the haiku people I've connected with, I connected with them in COVID and have never met them in person. And I am so stoked to meet people for the first time in person. and to give this presentation. And if you are listening to this and you are going to be at HNA, I hope you attend. It is going to be at 11 a.m. in the Mercantile Library. Just down from the hotel. I'm not really sure where it is in relation to things, but it's in walking distance. I'm super excited to be in the Mercantile Library. It is also the last presentation before lunch on Thursday, so it will get you hungry. The presentation is called Haiku, Food, and Digging into Your Roots. So in this podcast, I'm just sort of cribbing. I wrote this description, and then this is the first time I've looked at it since. But learn ways in which the turn of a haiku can sharpen the associations between food and heritage. Participants are encouraged to come prepared with haiku and or drafts. I'll have some guiding questions throughout the presentation that will offer opportunities for revision and reflection, and there will be a brief sharing period. And again, I will be recording this, so by reading your haiku aloud, you are consenting to be included in the podcast, the final published version of that episode. So just forewarning, but I would love to see you at that session. I would love to hear what you have to, I would love, just bring your work, and we'll workshop some things a little bit. I'm going to offer some pointers about thinking of how food connects to memory, because that's a huge, the intersection of food and memory is a huge topic, and how we can take that expansiveness and condense that into the short form of a haiku, that interests me a great deal. And yeah, this will be sort of an informal community open mic. But yeah, I hope to see you there. If you are going to be there, and I might not know that, and you definitely want to make plans to meet up, let me know. But I'm sure we are all going to hang out. And again, oh my gosh, I'm so. Shout out to my supervisor, who, when I was interviewing for my new job, and I don't have any vacation time accrued yet. I'm going to be in negative vacation days. But during the interview, I said I need to go to HNA. Like, this is non-negotiable, and he respected that. So shout out to my great new supervisor. All right, and you can hear my dog click-clacking around. It feels weird to just talk about me, myself, and just the podcast generally without giving you a little bit of haiku content. So I'm going to give you 3 poems, 3 haiku on the subject of melons. And these are R.H. Blythe translations. I'm going to admit Blythe is not my favorite haiku translator. And also, if you're going to talk about classical haiku, you've got to talk about Blythe. You just have to. You might disagree with that, but I don't think you can, talk about classical haiku in English without him. I'm sure I'll expand on that in a blog post down the line. So I'm not going to give too much analysis, but I'm going to give 3 summer haiku. The first one is by someone named Kuchar. I may not be pronouncing that properly. The melons are so hot, they have rolled out of their leafy hiding. The melons are so hot, they have rolled out of their leafy hiding. This next one is from Basho. The melons look cool, flecked with mud from the morning dew. The melons look cool, flecked with mud from the morning dew. And this last poem is from Isa. Oblivious of the gaze of the thief, melons in cool. Oblivious of the gaze of the thief, melons in cool. These 3 are actually grouped together in this anthology. This anthology is just called Haiku. It's Everyman's Library Pocket Poets by the Everyman publisher, which, side note, when I worked at Bookwoman, the feminist bookstore in Austin, Texas, we would order books from Everyman. They carry, a lot of anthologies and other, small books that are good to keep stocked, including, stuff by women, but they are Everyman. And I always loved that. And this might have changed. I worked there a long time ago, but I always loved when you would pull them up in our database. It would say Everyman and then in parentheses, the sexist publisher. I loved that so much. Anyway, so that's where this is from. It's the Everyman's Pocket Library series, selected and edited by Peter Washington. But again, many of the translations are, most if not all, are Blythe. Not all, but a good chunk of it is. Anyway, so in Basho and Issa, we've got the coolness of the melons, which I think is something that's a pretty standard association. That melon is generally something cool. First, it's full of water. It is so full of water. We often, keep them in the fridge and then enjoy a nice chilled slice of melon on a hot day, or some chilled melon wrapped in prosciutto is a very satisfying summer snack. Some people like to freeze melons and, just like eat a frozen melon on a really hot day. Sometimes people like to use frozen melon as a substitute for ice cubes in a beverage. So there is that clear association between the melons and the coolness. In Basho, the melons look cool, flecked with mud from the morning dew. We have the coolness of the melons. They've got some mud on them. We've got the morning dew, so we know it's still the early part of the day, the cool part of the day. So there's that double emphasis of the coolness there. And you can think of animals frequently roll in mud on hot days to cool off. My dog has definitely been known to do that. So we have all of these associations of it's summer. If it's not hot yet, it's going to be. But the melon itself is cool, and we have this connection to other ways of keeping oneself cool: water, mud, things like that. And then Issa, oblivious of the gaze of the thief, melons in cool. So this is the issue with translation, and I will talk so much about translation later in this season. Are the melons oblivious? And to me, of course, they would be, because they're melons, and melons don't have consciousness. Is something else oblivious? It seems like oblivious the first line is just the word oblivious. So grammatically, it seems like the melons are oblivious. I don't know if that's true or not. Hard to say. I welcome other thoughts on that, but we still have that sense of coolness. Maybe they're in the shade. Something like that. The melons are just there. The melons are cool, chilling out. I'm anthropomorphizing the melons now, but it's kind of hard not to with the poem the way it's written. And there is a thief lurking there, going to steal those delicious melons. And that's really the scene. But there is still emphasizing that coolness. And I sort of picture the thief. The thief is probably hot, right? The thief is probably, well, if you're stealing, you're struggling, right? So hot, bedraggled. And then this image of these cool, beautiful, nourishing, hydrating melons. That's where the real contrast of the poem is if we do the work to conjure the image of the thief. All right, and then we have an inversion of that with Kuchar. The melons are so hot, they have rolled out of their leafy hiding. So now we're talking about some extreme summer temperatures, right? And again, I don't know if it's the translation or if maybe it's the poem itself. I certainly can't read classical Japanese. But there's a trace amount of anthropomorphization here. That was, by the way, like my 6th take of that word, and I still stumbled over it. Good job, me. Anyway, so again, the melons seem to be acting with an agency that, certainly from a human perspective, they don't, like human logical, rational perspective, they don't seem to have. But think about it. It's like, at this point, it's probably like midsummer, late summer. It's really going, and it's a really hot year, and it's so hot that the melons have like popped away from their vines and like rolled into the sun. If a melon could do that, what would possess a melon to do that? Perhaps it is so hot that even in the shade actually feel like the shade of the leaves feels heavy. Maybe the melons are like, oh, we're too close together. We're all packed in. It's way too hot. And they run off and escape to get some physical space. I don't know. That is what I picture. Sometimes I read haiku and my mind pictures like a little animated cartoon, and that's what happens. So, again, I'm not going super deep on the analysis today, but I did want to leave you with some poetry. So, what is next for the season? Again, I will be alternating every other week, podcast blog. And I'm planning to do, again, at least 10. I actually have more than 10 episodes sort of scheduled, but we'll see how it goes. The end of the year does tend to get a little crazy. But I'm planning to at least do 10. And I do welcome guests. I like doing solo episodes, but my favorite podcasts are the ones where people talk to each other. That's the kind of podcast I want to make. I have Patricia of Poetry P and I have been going back and forth trying to make some scheduling work for her to come on, and juggling schedules and international time zones and all the other stuff that I certainly had going on in the first half of the year has made it a little tricky. But I'm when we meet at HNA, we're gonna hopefully get out our planners and schedule something, because I would love to have Patricia on the show, and I want to talk to you as well, even if you've been on the show before. It's a new season. We have a new theme of classical haiku. Come talk to me about it. Interest forms are over on the website culinarysaijiki.com, and of course I will link to them in the show notes. And before I finally sign off for it's night right now, but this will post in the morning. But before I sign off of this particular recording, I do want to thank Peg Cherrin-Myers for buying me a coffee, even though this podcast had been dormant for a while already. And I was way behind my anticipated schedule. And also and Peg bought me several coffees, both Peg and Kimberly Kuchar. Peg bought me 5 coffees, Kimberly bought 3. And Kimberly, I know that was in support of the Haiku Girl Summer short limited run publication I am doing. That's a whole other thing. I know that Kimberly bought me coffees in support of that because I'm not a fan of Substack's subscription options. Should have thought of that before starting a Substack, I guess. But still, nonetheless, wanted to say thank you. So thanks to Peg for contributing to this project, even though it had not been worked on for a while and it was just kind of sitting there. And thanks to Kimberly for supporting using that as a way to support my additional endeavors. You can always buy a coffee. I will be starting to post recipes again. I think I have the next recipe scheduled to go up. I think it's next week. My planner is not right in front of me, so who's to say? But I am going to be starting that up again before the month is out. So with that, I'm going to bid you good night. And I'm so glad to be recording again. So glad to be planning and writing again. I hope to see so many of you at HNA. I hope you have some food haiku that you would like to read at HNA and be part of this podcast. And even if you're not going to be at HNA, I hope you want to come on the show and talk to me again, because I love talking to people and I love making these connections. All right. Have a great night or day or whatever. And thank you for listening.